Hi, this is Mike Elliott, and you're watching the SEC Filings TV Executive Interview Series. In this episode, we'll be joined by Mr. James Joyce, CEO of Aethlon Medical, ticker symbol AEMD, as well as Dr. Douglas Taylor, Chief Scientific Officer of wholly owned subsidiary Exosome Sciences. Aethlon Medical creates innovative medical devices to address life-threatening diseases. In our last interview, our audience was introduced to Aethlon Medical and the company's development of medical devices targeting indications such as hepatitis C, HIV, sepsis, and various forms of cancer. Today, we're focusing on the company's recently launched subsidiary, Exosome Sciences. Hi, Jim. Thanks for joining us again.
Mike, it's a pleasure to be back on the show.
To start off, can you give us the bird's eye view of Exosome Sciences, its mission, and how it works in Aethlon's corporate structure?
Sure. The mission of Exosome Science is very straightforward. It's to leverage proprietary exosome-based technology. This is a platform technology that we created and that we believe will unlock the ability to detect the earliest occurrences of cancer and other disease conditions, and also allow us to monitor responses to therapy. So from an Aethlon medical perspective, we are transforming Exosome Sciences from an unvalued asset on our balance sheet and unlocking its ability to become a very much valued asset on our balance sheet. So since our last dialogue, we've kicked off the grand opening of Exosome Sciences, opened a new research laboratory in the Princeton, New Jersey area, hired two of the best-known researchers in the exosome field. In fact, today our work was referenced in the online version of the Wall Street Journal. It's in the latest version or the latest issue of Popular Science. And we have information related to our studies getting ready to hit in science journals.
And Exosome Sciences has been a dormant entity within your company for a few years. Why bring it to life now?
Well, it's been dormant in form where we formed it as a diagnostic subsidiary, but the actual work from a diagnostic standpoint goes back a number of years. We were one of the first organizations to initiate research into the exosome field. It was based on our belief that exosomes were very immunosuppressive, that the particles were suppressing the immune system in cancer patients and killing off immune cells a patient needs to combat cancer. At that time, the vast majority of the medical community believed that exosomes were no more than cellular debris with no biological function. Since then, it's become quite well known that our original bet was correct. They're very immunosuppressive in cancer patients. So our hemopurifier inside of Aethlon Medical is a first-in-class device to eliminate these particles from circulation to improve therapeutic outcomes to standard of care drug therapies. But in our early research, we developed diagnostics to validate our capabilities. And it's now become very apparent that the original research we were mining in the exosome field, it could become very important. And it provides the basis of next generation diagnostics. And as many people now recognize in the science field, there's now what you could consider being an exosome gold rush going on. And hopefully Wall Street will soon begin to understand this.
And next, we're going to be talking to Dr. Douglas Taylor, the Chief Scientific Officer of Exosome Sciences. And I understand that he's a pioneer in the field of exosome biology, publishing a seminal article in 1979 describing the circulation of tumor-secreted exosomes. So by way of introduction, can you tell us a little more about his background and how his involvement benefits the company?
Well, I think most people recognize Dr. Taylor as being the individual that first discovered tumor-secreted exosomes, and both himself and Chichek Grissel-Taylor are pioneers in the exosome biology field. They're highly recognized globally in the scientific field and now working to lead our endeavors at Exosome Sciences.
Jim, thanks for taking the time to join us.
My pleasure, Mike.
And that brings us to Dr. Taylor. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Taylor.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Let's start with the basics. In layman's terms, can you tell us what exosomes are and whether they have a function in a healthy body or in a disease state only?
No, it's exosomes. When you look at them, these are small packages of cellular information that are being released into the peripheral circulation. We like to look at them as really being, these are like letters that are being sent out from a cell to other hosts in the bodies, or another way, I guess now that people really don't send letters anymore, these are more like Twitter. where the cells can send out small pieces of information, and other cells in the body that are following that cell, say a lymphocyte or something can follow a cell in the body and say, how is it doing? Is it normal? Is it happy? Is it getting enough nutrients? Is it trying to do any of the things that it needs in order to be, maintain its the healthy status of the patient? So in every cell in the body, and that's one of the things that's so important about these, every cell in the body releases an exosome. And this way it normally communicates between cells, the way the cells maintain your health. If you need more oxygen to an organ, that's one of the ways it communicates that for vasodilation. Even nerve transduction is conducted via vesicles. So they're a really important part of cellular communication. So all cells use vesicles to communicate. But one of the things that happens when a cell becomes transformed or diseased, whether it's cancer or a viral infection, the content or the cargo of those exosomes changes. So the same way the content of the letter. So you monitor the changes in the cell's status by what the cargo is in these exosomes.
And Exosome Sciences is a diagnostics company, but what kind of information can be gleaned from detecting exosomes? I think you went into this a little bit, but what kind of information can we get from exosomes in the bloodstream? In other words, what is the primary purpose of the company's diagnostic assay?
So you could sort of liken us to the NSA. Basically, we're reading the mail. All the stuff that cells are sending out, the normal cells, they have the normal information. What we're looking for are the messages that are coming from transformed or diseased cells. And the kinds of information that we can get are, it is surprising how much information we can do an entire transcriptome from the RNA present in these exosomes. We can look at the proteome or all the proteins that are produced by the originating cell and give a blueprint of what the originating cell looks like. And so that way we can say, what's the status of that cell? If we want to know what genes have been changed, what things are now being expressed, we can now go back and look at it. By looking at these exosomes, we can get a signal from that cell. So we can almost tell anything, any characteristic of that cell, both the phenotype and genotype of the cell, based on their exosome profiles.
Next, let's focus on cancer for a bit. Immunotherapies seem to be surging to the forefront of cancer research. In particular, PD-1 inhibitors such as Bristol Myers Squibb's nivolumab are showing significant progress as novel drug candidates. Is there a connection between your work on exosomes and the advancements being made in immunotherapy?
Absolutely. It will sort of fit into there's two ways or 2 points where we fit into that. One is, so we've got these new immunotherapeutic agents, and one of the issues is, does it target the immunosuppression that's being produced by that tumor? And by looking at the exosomes, say if you're giving someone a PD-1 inhibitor, is the PD-1 pathway, is that turned on in that tumor cell? So by looking at the exosomes, you can say, okay, this cell, the tumor cell is producing PD-L1, so it's interacting with the PD-1 expressed on lymphocytes, suppressing the lymphocyte activity and inducing immunosuppression via that mechanism. So that's why they're good candidates for PD-1 inhibitors. So you need to know, is this patient going to respond to that specific immunotherapy? And we can identify that from exosomes. And then once you've started treating them, you want to know how are they responding. You should see if they're responding to the inhibitor, then you should see the PD-L1 on the exosomes decreasing. And so that allows you both, to stratify the patients who should be receiving the therapy, followed by monitoring the patients who are receiving that therapy. And it's kind of interesting. We've been, about 5 years ago, we identified the presence of the PD-L1 as an immunosuppressive agent on exosomes that are associated with ovarian cancer. And so we've been following that for a while now. So it's really nice that it's sort of now people are now sort of focused on targeting some drugs to the inhibitors associated with exosomes.
And most people in the general population have probably never heard of exosomes, but the scientific community is studying them intensely. You published a paper in 1979 discussing exosomes, but awareness takes time. So how long have scientists been studying exosomes as they relate to cancer, and what is the current state of this industry?
Well, it's, when we started back in in 79, we were really the only group that was working on exosomes. And when we first published it, one of the things people told us was it was just dust, that we were identifying just cell debris that really had no relevance. And so it was really not until about 6 years ago that the field really started to explode, when they finally came out with a paper that said exosomes are no longer an artifact. So sort of validated that we've been sort of working on this for 25 years, and people really didn't believe that they were real, that they were just sort of an artifact of culture. But even in the last 3 years, now the NIH has recognized how important exosomes are. They initiated their funding through the Directors Common Fund, targeting specifically research on exosomes, because this is a program which not only covers the National Cancer Institute, but it's a trans agency, so it affects every agency within the total National Institutes of Health. So it's a fundamental importance to whether it's diabetes or heart disease or mental health, and all those, as well as cancer, are all affected by exosomes.
And Dr. Taylor, that's all the questions I had for today. Were there any comments you wanted to add before we close?
No, I think it's really, we've gotten to a point now where, we've now finally recognized exosomes in terms of their importance and where this is going. And I think it's really sort of, I think it's such an exciting time to be part of this, that we've basically seen 35 years worth of work that's now people are now taking into the clinic. And I think as a researcher, that's the one thing that we want to see. Is you don't want to see your research sort of just be published. You actually want to see applied to patients and see a real improvement in the health of a lot of these patients.
Thank you very much for your time today, Dr. Taylor. It was a pleasure to speak with you and learn more about your new company and exosomes in general.
All right. Thank you very much.
We've been talking to first Mr. James Joyce, CEO of Aethlon Medical, ticker symbol AEMD, and now Dr. Douglas Taylor. He's the Chief Scientific Officer of wholly owned subsidiary Exosome Sciences. Aethlon Medical creates innovative medical devices to address life-threatening diseases, and Exosome Sciences creates diagnostic tools to detect and quantify the presence of exosomes in blood and other fluids. To learn more about them, please visit their website at www.aethlonmedical.com. Thank you.